Protect your team and stay OSHA compliant with PickerPal. Fall protection built specifically for elevated pick modules. Their patent-pending, self-closing safety arms maintain a barrier at all times without batteries or training. With over 60,000 arms in use nationwide, PickerPal is trusted by leading warehouses and distributors. Learn more or schedule a free on-site assessment at pickerpalproducts.com. That's pickerpalproducts.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse, and I am on site here at Supply Chain Point 2025, and joining me here is John Hansis, and he represents Streetleaf. And John, tell us a little bit about what you do, what's your role, and what is Streetleaf?
Sure. My name is John Hansis. I'm the head of operations for Streetleaf. Streetleaf is a solar street lighting company, so we predominantly go in your big master plan communities, residential developments. Our kind of key to fame is that we have non-grid tied, so that we can set up 30 minutes or less, and that we are actually certified for category 4 or 5 direct hit without any impact to operations. So a lot of times in Florida, the lights go out, power goes out in storms, our lights stay on, keeps everything, bright and shiny for everybody else. So part of what I do as head of operations is helping grow the company, but also grow it responsibly enough that we're not just spending money trying to throw another issue at something, and grow responsibly as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about kind of we're here to talk supply chain, right? We're here to talk warehousing, distribution, right? So tell us a little bit about kind of the distribution setup you have. How do you guys run operations? What does your network look like?
Yeah. We have a warehouse by us up in Zephyr Hills, Florida. So we have our own warehouse where we launch everything we import in. Anything that we have manufactured goes into that warehouse. And at the same time, that's where all of our guys are doing the shipments going out to customers that we're doing. In addition to that, we also have an overflow 3PL space that we utilize at times. Last year, for instance, we were unsure where tariffs were going to be when Trump was going into office, and at the same time, there was a potential East Coast port strike.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So we had ordered in advance of that, knowing that we might potentially have an issue. So we used the 3PL space to kind of handle some of that overflow for us, to be able to react more fastly for our customers in need.
Interesting. And you're dealing with lights, right? So is it big items, small items?
What I mean, they're you have a solar panel and you have a light head itself. So they come in a box that I would say is 20 inches, 40 inches by 30 inches high, 100 pounds. And then we also have an aluminum pole that we put in the ground and mount everything onto that.
Yeah.
So it's very you have two inside-outside storage, if you will, that we look at for those ones. So it makes a little bit harder when you're looking at a 3PL space because you need both inside and outside. In addition to most of what we're doing is only within what I say is the Sun Belt. That we're East Coast to West Coast, but not too much high north, because some of these we have not tested them yet in a winter environment.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I'm in Jersey, so I know it gets cold up there, definitely, with the elements. So tell us a little bit about, we're here at Supply Chain Point, right? And we're looking at new solutions here, learning about things. I mean, what are some of the maybe challenges that you're having right now that you're trying to solve within your operations?
I think some of the challenges is kind of unpredictability that you sometimes face with certain customers. So you have a customer that you're expecting to order a certain amount, and that is either much higher or significantly lower. So you're either not having enough inventory or you have too much. Your carrying costs go high, things of that nature. So it's trying to find that delicate balance between the two that makes it cost effective for the company, but also allows us to still be very, customer focused and in responding to those needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting to see a lot of the solutions here are some of the challenges as well. How do you recommend and how do you maybe yourself go about vetting out these solutions and trying to figure out what's the right one, what's the right path to go down? How do you assess that?
It's tough, but I think a lot of times once you've been in this field long enough, you know what you're looking for, you know what you're not looking for. So you need a company or a platform that has ability to bolt onto existing, but also is not a one and done. It's not, it's all or nothing kind of a thing. It's something that can be adaptive to what you're already doing, and also making sure that you're making tomorrow better than today, efficiently wise within the warehouse without having a significant uplift to IT cost or something of that nature that makes sometimes those things a little bit more difficult to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like we said, they're getting better today and also tomorrow, right? I think is what you said. And I think that's really a key to understand is how do we do something that's going to solve our problems right now, but is not going to cause more problems in the future, right? Because sometimes, we can put our finger in the dam, right, and plug up the hole, but that doesn't solve the problem for the long term. So I'm curious, what are you seeing in terms of just the overall landscape of distribution and warehousing right now? What are you seeing from your contacts, your peers in the industry? What are some challenges or maybe some interesting solutions that you've heard of?
I think, one thing I still see as a common problem is that a lot of times distribution, warehousing, 3PL is still siloed. So you're looking at it where the senior leadership of certain companies don't really look at that as a overreaching, end-to-end circular network. Where you're looking at it where as a warehousing has to be tied in with IT, procurement, accounting and finance, sales, where a lot of times they're siloed, where their KPIs are driven to force them to be siloed. And especially with the bigger companies, you may have your accounting team on the West Coast, but your warehouse distribution's East Coast.
Right.
And they're not on the same team, they're not on the same page, they're in different time zones. So you still see that as a regular, I think in this space it's getting better, but you still see it very fractionalized in that approach to that, as we look in those things. So it makes it a little bit harder to really move the needle for a company because they're so spread so thin that each individual, department has their own individual KPI that's not intertwined. That makes it a lot harder, to do that process.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's a really great point because I've experienced that myself in my career where, we're in the distribution center, even though it's the main distribution center in the network, right? A lot of that support staff that's outside of the warehouse is not on site, right? They're not easily accessible sometimes. So how do you recommend people navigate those kind of situations? How do you make sure that you're, including these other people in the fold and, or making sure that you have good lines of communication? How do you recommend that?
I think you have to have full buy-in by all your departments. So if you're going to do an uplift and you know it's going to make a great impact to the company, and you know it's going to make that impact, you need to have IT involved because they're going to understand what kind of uplift are you asking for them. How much of a uplift is it for them to allow this external vendor into your internal network? Is there regulatory issues, licensing issues? Then you need accounting because how much is it going to cost? Is there an upfront cost? Is it a monthly recurring? Are we paying at the tail end of this? And then from your sales is, how do we build this platform that enables sales to sell either better, more efficient, or smarter, knowing that we have the ability to react to a customer faster? If you're strategically locating a 3PL to zone skip. So if you have a customer that, hey, they buy on the West Coast and it ships that day or next day, kind of that Amazon effect, if you will. Having worked at Amazon myself, I know this all too well. Where you're seeing that, where I think in these spaces, having that full, direction of where that end result is, but reverse engineering that from every step one, not looking at the finish line only. And I think that's where a lot of times I always say it's looking through a telescope versus a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
You need to be looking at the magnifying glass, knowing that far-reaching goal is there, but you got to focus on the now to make those incremental steps better for the organization as a whole.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that, definitely. And I think that's a great example of the operations versus like the sales side, right? Like how do you? Because I think sometimes, and maybe you've experienced this, where sales will promise, but then it's up to operations to deliver, and they're like, yeah, we told them, we can get it to them in 2 days, and you're like, what? Like, yeah. So I love that example of like how do you work together to be able to not only deliver upon what sales is trying to promise, but then also create more effectiveness so that they can go and sell that effectiveness as well, right? I think that's a great example there. So now let's switch gears a little bit, because you have another role, right? Which is pretty interesting. So tell us about your other role.
Yeah. So my other role, I am the transportation sector chief for InfraGard. What that is a joint task force with FBI and local businesses surrounding cybersecurity within the transportation industry, specifically for me. They have other sectors from banking, pharmaceutical, utility. I specifically focus in the transportation sector, where a lot of times it's seeing information that the government has and passing it to local businesses, but also as businesses may see a cluster attack in a certain region and passing that back to the government to say, hey, we have businesses in Miami that are seeing this kind of attack within their infrastructure. Have you seen something like that? What do you recommend? And helping connect those people, in that environment, but also understanding and helping recognize theft within supply chain. So it's, you see it all the time in the news, people breaking into rail cars, people breaking into trucks and the truck stops and things like that. And a lot of times people think it's high tech that's beating them, it's actually low tech.
Really? Like some examples. Give us some examples.
I talk about this frequently. Most of the time, you can almost essentially break into a trailer. Most of the trailers on the road, not every one of them, but a majority of them, 10, 15 minutes or less, and to do so without jeopardizing the security seal. So it's easy to say, okay, these guys just rip the door off or rip the lock off. That's easy stuff, because you're going to get caught as soon as that truck does his inspection the next time you roll. But to do so without jeopardizing the security seal is where they've gotten sophisticated in how they're doing that. And because if you look at that in an instance where somebody does that and they take off that security seal, they take out one or two items, or more dangerously put two items in.
Okay.
And now they get to that end destination, and you look at like a trucking yard, Tom team, they go to check that truck in, they just do what I call the jiggle test. They go there and shake the security seal. Oh, it's attacked, let you go. Okay, go to door 220. Gets to 220, the guy opens the door, okay, it's attacked. They finally cut it open the door, pallets are missing, or something else is in there that's not supposed to be there. And shipper's blaming receiver's blaming a trucking company, and the insurance companies hold the bag. So now it's working with insurance companies that say, okay, you're seeing a lot of theft or payouts in this, atmosphere, this environment. We're gonna, I can help you create SOPs around shipping for that customer, and in a way that your payouts are less in insurance claims, but also for the end user, for the individual companies, they don't realize that bringing in a more robust system lowers their premiums. So if they are seeing a high theft or a rise in theft, it's like, hey, I do this more robust system, I can now lower my insurance premiums 15-20% because I'm dropping the theft. And at the end of the day, you're just making it harder for the bad guys to do the things that they're trying to do.
So I'm curious, when that sort of situation happens, right, and it happens more often, I think, than we think, right? Is it high percentage that these people get caught, or is it too late by that time to even figure it out?
Most of what the stuff they're targeting, I would say you get two categories: electronics, which is very easy to flip, as well as food perishable items. Because some of that stuff will spoil. So if it's gone by the time they get around to investigating it a week later, it's already bad or it's gone.
It doesn't stick around.
So it's very easy to, and especially say if you're looking at electronics, most of your SKUs identifiers are on the main pallet, not on the individual item. So if they're able to recover a box, they'll just know maybe from an Amazon FBA SKU or something like that, hey, this was done sometime in the last 30 days. But they have no idea is that one a missing one? Is it stolen? Is it legitimate?
Yeah.
So it's very hard for them to pinpoint. So a lot of the stuff is very fast moving that it's very hard to get that back or, to even find those things.
Yeah, I see.
You may be able to find the players, like in the recent news where I think it was in California, they got a ring that hit, a company, Amazon for over $80 million.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things and then they were turning around and reselling it almost on their same platform.
Oh, wow. Oh, on Amazon again. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting to hear some of that and just the kind of I mean, easy in a sense, easier than you think it would be to pull off something like that. So how does the shipper, the warehouse operations, how do they work in partnership with a trucking company to try and prevent some of this?
Yeah, similar. I think a lot of times it's not just a trucking company, but also platforms. So,
okay.
One of the ones I spoke with at a different conference was Ryan Joyce at Genlock.
Okay.
A lot of what they're doing in that space is very good because that's what they specialize in. So you don't have to have a one-all, be-all. It's hey, I can hire this company, this platform, to help me vet trucking coming in or out of my facility. Because a lot of times you see the double brokering, you see those issues where, and the speed of some of these warehouses, they're not able to catch up to them.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta get this load out. I don't have time to sit there and check this guy's driver's. He's gonna give me a driver's license. I'm good. But then they don't realize that by the time that guy leaves, he might have been legitimately hired from bad actors.
Yeah.
So he himself might have thought he was doing the right thing.
Yeah,
but he delivered it to a different
Yeah.
warehouse because they interjected that load, intercepted it, and now it got delivered to another warehouse where it wasn't supposed to be. And by the time they figure that out, the stuff's gone.
Yeah. Interesting. And I'm curious. I got to ask you, what's the craziest story you've heard?
I think some of the craziest ones involves the Texas-Mexico border.
Really? Okay.
Where they were taking out electronics and smuggling people in.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of those things that, in the beginning, people were just getting paid off, letting it go. But then their Achilles heel was basically the equivalent of a DOT scam.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they're seeing this repeat offender driving, and the load is very much different in weight than what the manifest had.
Yeah.
And so now they're able to catch this person and then work their way up the chain to stop a bigger ring from something that was, originally just getting, because it's very hard for them to stop every truck at a border.
Right, yeah.
So it's more of how do they do it more efficiency? How do they recognize these patterns to be able to target, a better ratio, if you will. If they can only inspect one out of every 100 trucks, they need that one to really hit home or be able to lead them somewhere else in an investigation.
Yeah, interesting. So what kind of tip would you give for somebody that if they're receiving a shipment or they're checking a shipment, what signs would they look for to see if this load has been tampered with?
I think if you're just dealing with the shipment is okay. You need to make sure that that trucker is vetted, checking their DOT, checking their MC license, things of that nature, making sure that trailer that booked it is the actual trailer that shows up. Because I think a lot of times that's where it slips. Is hey, this guy booked it. This guy was on the load board. He looks legit. And it comes a truck, but no one really vetted that truck. Hey, I'm here. I got the correct paperwork to say I'm supposed to pick up that load, but he may not be the same trucker, the same MC number.
Yeah.
And the guys in the warehouse floor, that's not their job. I don't want to say it's not their job, but a lot of times they have to do 100 trucks that day. If they got a truck and the trucker has the right bill of lading, as far as their due diligence is concerned, they were done.
Yeah.
But from a higher level, they got to do smarter, where either they're checking in them correctly, checking the driver's license, checking that MC, checking the trailer, making sure those players aren't bad actors from previous, So there's software companies out there or platforms that help you deal with that. But also in shipping, you can RFID, you can do GPS locations, you can geo-fence your shipment so that as long as he stays within 5 miles of the highway, we're okay.
Right.
Things of that nature where it costs you $20, $30 a shipment, but that $20, $30 prevents your theft.
Yeah.
If they know there's something else in here, and there's even companies out there that have a little cable that actually fits through the security seal, but also goes inside the trailer that actually has light sensitivity. So if somebody actually
really?
opened the door,
I haven't seen
you can
that.
see
Yeah.
that, you'll get an alert saying, hey, light sensitivity sensor went off on your shipment.
Yeah.
And, in the past, I could tell if it was an overpass. That driver's driving on Highway 10 in Texas, and he just hit that overpass because you get those opaque ceilings.
Right.
Or it's a prolonged one, like, hey, this thing's more than a minute. Okay, somebody opened the door.
Yeah.
And now you can immediately alert and be reactive. So you're being more, proactive than reactive in these scenarios.
Interesting. And I hadn't heard of that sensor before. That's super interesting, definitely. So great tips there, and really interesting information with you. And so we're here at Supply Chain Point, right?
Yes.
So tell us what you think.
Well, I like these. I like this environment because it allows kind of more one-on-one, and it allows it to be more. You can get more in depth in the conversation. So it's not just a quick 10, 15 minutes and you got to run to another one. It's, hey, I can sit down and have a conversation, or my mornings and meetings, but now in the afternoon, I'm free to meet or talk with people that I want to meet with in this space.
Yeah, I think that's great. And for other, you're on the executive side here of the event, right? So for other executives, people that are in your position at other companies, I mean, what would you say to them to maybe encourage them to come, or why should they come?
I think, to me, this is an event where I would say it's quality over quantity. A lot of times we have minimal time frame to do some of these events. So the fact that you can get 10 executives in a room, one vendor's, making a presentation, you don't have to sit there and go through 30 meetings. You're going to one or two and having them come to you.
Yeah.
You're able to discern, very quickly, does this work for me? Does this not work for me? But also, more importantly, does it work for somebody I know? We have a lot of mutual connections out there. So
that's
a lot
true.
of times
Yeah.
we have it where, hey, can you recommend somebody in this space? Yeah, I know this company because they didn't work for me, but I met with them. Hey, here's this guy's car. Or, hey, here's this guy's LinkedIn connection. Something that we can do and be in a kind of a conduit within that networking, abilities that we have.
Yeah. Shout out Conduit across the way here, actually. Yeah. Good time. So really appreciate you stopping by here, our booth at Supply Chain Point, and talking to us and give us some of that great insight and tips as well. I think it's very, very interesting. So I hope you have a good rest of the show here.
Thank you. Like I said, it's been funny because I think we've been at so many shows together.
Yeah, we finally connected.
We finally had a chance to connect. So, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, pleasure being on.
Definitely.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes, and for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.